Welcome to another session. I hope you were well. I would like to start a new session today, but also a new series, one that I have titled Men of Honor. Now, from the title itself, I would hope that you would understand that this is directed towards men. Many months ago, I started a short series of sessions in which I focused on the importance of men and the message. The theme was men, you are important. As I reflected over the past few days about what I would like to talk about and share over the next few sessions, what came to my mind was something that a Spartan warrior from historical books and accounts was noted to have said. He said that a city is fortified when it is filled with men rather than fortified when it is built with bricks. Now, to understand this statement, you have to go back in time to understand how cities were. If you think about some of the castles we have in the country, one of the things you understand is how strong the outer walls of the city or the castle were. And part of the reason for that was because it was important to keep intruders away. Now, if you come to the city of London, that is an example most people may relate to, whether you have visited London or you live in London, or perhaps you were born in London. We have something similar to what would have been considered a moat. And then we have the city walls or the city gates. The walls of the city are fortified very strongly. Sometimes we have several layers of brick, stone, or building material used to provide enough strength to the city gates or to the city wall to prevent invaders, people who are looking to run over the city, pillage, kill, loot, destroy what the people of the city have given their lives for, and some of the inheritances they may have received from their ancestors. Now, you can have a city that is fortified with the most important and most secure forms of building material, stone, brick, or something in between. But that city will not stand if it has no strong men. If you think about what's happening in parts of the West, the Great Britain or the United Kingdom, the United States, and other parts of what was originally parts of the Anglosphere, what you see are important cities and important towns and important countries, or what we might say from an international relations and historic perspective, states, important states that have some level of, you might say, external boundaries and barriers. However, such cities and states are crumbling from within. Not because the city gates are not fortified enough, but more because there are no good men. There are no strong men, and unfortunately, a city cannot stand. A city's inheritances will not be sustained. A city's values and morals, a city's culture is at risk when you do not have men who will stand and protect what the city has. Now, at least you think this has perhaps nothing to do with you. Let me bring it back full circle to you, the man. Recognize as I share today's session and the sessions to follow, I do not want you to think of this as someone acting in a position of a high priest, speaking down and providing all of the answers, all of the solutions, or saying that you have something wrong with you and definitely something that needs improvement. Instead, I would like you to think of me as someone who is saying, I am in that city with you, and I have work to do, and I am simply the voice in the wilderness, not asking you to repent, but calling on the greatness within you and calling on you to wake up. For many years, many years, men have been asleep. We've been in a deep sleep and in a deep slumber, and it's time to wake up. I start today's session with a question: who are you? The great writers from the past, the American novelist Mark Twain, is noted to have said, the two most important days of your life as a man or as a woman, as a person, the first being the day you were born, and the second being the day you find out why. The why behind that second part is purpose. If you paid attention to anything I've shared with regards to men, you hear me talk about a few things: 6 P's. Purpose, provision, protection, the priestly role or duties, your presence and professing your love, the ability to be a prophet and to prophesy and to share and to use your mouth. The responsibilities and roles that we have as men morph around us 6 P's. Now, depending on where you are in life and how old you are and where you are geographically, there'll be a responsibility. In the past, provision, protection was what was used to define the roles that men played in societies and therefore the responsibilities that men had. The reasons or the motivations were based on those 2 founding factors. Things have changed. We've industrialized the West. We've made huge improvements across the whole world, and the classical requirement for a man to just be a provider, protector is no longer required. What we have and what we lack in society these days is a void. It's a gap of purpose, a gap of why, of a calling. So the question is, who are you? Now, if I was to be in a room with you, and I have done this many a times, in a social setting, and I walk in and I'm introduced to people, after a certain number of minutes or sometimes hours, the interaction starts to flow. But at the start of the conversation and interaction, people define themselves by different and various ways. Some people introduce themselves based on what they do, their profession. We define ourselves by being an engineer, an accountant, a business owner, some of us a teacher, a plumber, whatever your profession might be. We say this is who I am. Some other people, depending on how they think of themselves, would describe themselves first based on the relationships that they have or the relationship status that they hold close to their hearts. I am married. Some might talk about I'm a father of 2 boys, 2 girls. Some might talk about being a cousin, a nephew, a niece, but male and female. The point being that we define ourselves through a lens. Sometimes it's our profession, sometimes it's our relationship or our relationship status. Some other times it's based on our personalities. For most people, we tend to lean towards our hobbies, our areas of interest, perhaps our likes. So you might find people define themselves as athletes. Some people might define themselves based on a hobby they might have. They love horses. I'm a horse enthusiast. I'm an animal lover. The point of all of that is to simply say, each one of us is still searching for the answer to the question, who am I? Now, seldom have I found people who have defined themselves based on their values, their character, their principles, and their morality. Seldom. I will say though, a lot of people define themselves based on their religion. I'm a Christian, I'm a Muslim, I'm a Hindu, I'm an atheist, I'm agnostic. We do all of that simply to enable us fit and see where we are accepted or understood or welcomed. Interestingly, everything that I have described, your profession, your career, your job, your hobbies, your personality that changes over time, that is not the real you. The most important part of you as a man is formless in nature. It's infinite in this capacity. It cannot be seen with the naked eyes. The most important part of you as a man is within. And it takes time and study and seeking for you to come to that place of having a better understanding of possibly what that person in you and who that person in you really is, and what the still small voice within you is calling you to do. Who are you? The last series of sessions I did covered a social observation with regards to women. And at the end of the session, but also at the start of the session, I said I hold men responsible. Because men are those who stay in the gap. We stand in the gap. Because we stand on something or because we stand for something. We face a challenge of late because most men do not know what they stand on. And even more men do not know what they stand for. And so I will conclude today's session by bringing in something that I think is important, which is the word truth. Truth is something you can stand on, and truth is something you can stand for. If you stand on truth and you stand for truth, you will find that you will not be shaken, because you will find the resolve to stand firm. A wise person once said that truth is beauty and beauty is truth. That is all you will ever need to know, and all you would ever need. And I see in most young men, particularly young men, a lack of willingness to stand in the gap for truth and to stand on that truth. If you do not stand on truth, your character, your integrity, your philosophy, your principles, your belief system, your ethics, your lifestyle will be on shaky grounds, because you will succumb to any wind that comes and blows in whatever direction and influences you. As I speak to many young men these days, I tend to find that the motivation for money, though important, has overcome and overwhelmed what most men see as their most important focus or defining archetype of what makes them who they are. I'll refer you back to a session I did, a playlist, in which I talk about how to assess a man's value. And I go through a number of them. It's a 10-part series. And in each, I provide you with how to assess your value as a man. And I provide acronyms. Gentleman's value, GB. Your character value, CV. Your manhood value, MV. Your husband's value, HV. I go as far as your sexual marketplace value, SMV. Your non-sexual marketplace value, NSMV. Your reproductive fertility value, RV. And the list goes on. And of all of this, you might say, ways of assessing a man's value, I make it very clear that in my opinion, and this is a humble opinion, there are two that are responsible for over 70% of what a man's value is. The rest make up the balance, and not equally. The two are your character value as a man and your manhood value as a man. The next, remember the first two, make up more than 70%. If you were a student and you scored 70%, that would be a distinction. So to find yourself as a man and to understand what you're built and what you stand on and what you stand for, you only need to work in two things: your character and your manhood. You're born male. You progress over time through modeling and influence into boyhood. Then you move to manhood, which comes through work and study and practice and understanding and sacrifice. But you're crafted into being a gentleman. Most of us, unfortunately, born male, modeled other people, and were influenced by our associations and our environment, and we became boys. But most of us have skipped the next stage, which is manhood. Partly because we haven't had good men and strong men men of integrity and men of purpose and men of character, who stood in the gap and said, this is how you become a man. This is the archetype. And so what we have done is by influence, society-wise, we've taken bits from everywhere. And therefore, most men in the West, and I use a number, 80%, have skipped the whole phase of developing their manhood. I make it very clear in the same series that the temptations you face as a man enable you to forge and form both your character value and your manhood value. Every man is only as dedicated, every man is only as faithful, every man is only as trustworthy, every man is only as sincere as the temptations he has overcome. And until you come to your Garden of Gethsemane, we do not know who you are as a man. You might have money, you might have fame, you might have wealth, you might have friends, you might have influence. But the question really is, what do you stand on? And what do you stand for? What is that truth upon which you stand on? Now, this is not to suggest that the moment you're born male, that suddenly you're not allowed to make mistakes. I use myself as references in sessions that I have covered to show how there is a transition phase. You're never in your place of assignment immediately. You often have to go through a period or a phase of preparation for your assignment. We know many people. Nelson Mandela was in prison for so many years. That was a place of preparation. And then he governed for a short period. We know other people from the books of antiquities, the likes of Moses, Abraham, the likes of Paul and the Christ, who went through phases, temptation. You see, first of all, you are called. Then you go into the wilderness for your temptations. Then you come out of the wilderness, assuming you are successful. And then you go into the phase of preparation. And for some people, you prepare for 30 years. And then you serve for 3 years. But in that 3 years, you achieve all of your purpose and your life's work because you've actually developed both the character and the manhood value for you to unleash the greatness within you. Who are you? The question I started today's session with, and as I call this session to a close, think about that question and let that question sit in your heart and in your mind for a few days. Pick up a piece of pen and a piece of paper, and let's assume you do not know the answer to that question. Let me leave you with 3 questions, perhaps, that can start to guide you towards finding yourself. Number 1, what is your story? Or put differently, what story consumes you? What story have you bought? What story influences you? In your subconscious mind, what is your story? Number 2, what state do you find yourself on a regular basis? Is it a state that is a can-do person or can-do attitude, or a state that is weak, someone you feel defeated before you even start? And number 3, what is the strategy you have on a daily basis? What is your story? What is your daily state? What is your strategy? Now, you may not know who you are, but I can tell you, if you can answer the other 3 questions, then it allows you to pick up a piece of paper and decide that you want to live a purpose-driven life whilst you find your purpose. Most of the time, choosing a path that is a purposeful and well-lived life leads you down the path towards your actual purpose, where you discover who you really are as a man. The moral character of this country is in a very fragile state, particularly because we do not have men. Like most old cities, this country, you could say, is fortified by bricks city is built of bricks, but we lack strong men and we lack good men. In the sessions to follow, I'm going to talk about other topics, which will be building blocks upon this introductory session, and I hope it's of some value to you.